Hello YouTube and welcome to another review, and this time we have the story of ESCI, and this is 1967 to the year 2000, and this is models and figures, and this is by Christope-Carbonel, same guy who did the AIRFIX'S book, if you remember that review. It's in the same series. Very nice book, very interesting. It's not a bedtime read. As you get into the 1970s, for instance, it gets quite a bit hectic. Lots of partnerships with other companies, Revell, Ertl, lots going on. The pictures inside the diagrams, which are great colour photos and things like that. The imagery sort of loses its way to the text, so you end up flicking backwards and forwards through pages. There's a lot of commentary in there from the actual guys who worked for ESCI at this time, 70s, the 80s, and obviously in the death throes of the 90s. And as such, sometimes you don't know really who's speaking, who's actually saying this. They are numbered, so these sections are numbered. There's a slight number and you refer back to the back, but the numbers are very small, and what we could have had was probably a little bit of shading just to make sure that the text doesn't just roam into someone else's thoughts and descriptions about what was going on at the time. So in this sense, it's a little bit more expansive than the AIRFIX'S book, which just focused solely on the figures, which was actually called AIRFIX'S Little Soldiers. This one is more focused on the model kits. So if you're not really interested in the model kits, you know, you'll have to sort of stick with the video. There is a mentioning of the figures here and there, but not on an expansive scale. This really does focus on the kits. However, it's still quite interesting, and we get to know quite a lot about what ESCI was up to at the time. So straight away, ESCI actually stands for Ente Scambi Colonial Internacional. Now, the company was actually defunct at the time. It was an old trading company in the 1930s, and the name actually became sort of semi-defunct. I think they kept the offices going. And this guy, an Italian guy, and his name was Dino Capola. He actually went to the owners of the actual name and the offices, Danielle and Dora Agaman, and he asked if he could use the name, and he must have asked if he can use the offices as well, and the offices were based in Milan, and he started to found the company. And at first the company was only going to do decals, so lots of manufacturers would, for instance, do lots of model aircraft, and ESCI, what they were doing was basically supplying decals for these models, and that proved quite lucrative. And so that's how they actually started off, was by selling just the decal sheets. So you'd sell decals for tanks and aircraft, etc. And they made quite a bit of money on that. That was rather successful for them. Where they would go, they'd go international, Hong Kong, anywhere they could, just to sort of source business partners on that. So by 1972, so this was about 1967-68, they founded the company, they're doing the decals. By around 1972, they announced their first kit, and obviously you get all the problems that go with that, and that was going to be a 1/9 scale BMW motorbike and sidecar, which was the old German one. You've seen them all, plenty of war films. Even Action Man did a scaled sort of motorbike and sidecar. They were quite a sort of popular little thing, and that was designed by Manuel Oliver Sanz. And I believe they also did a Kugelwagen in the same scale, though that wasn't as successful and required quite a lot of investing in time and money. And there was various things wrong with that, but I think it was the Kugelwagen, for instance, was one of these great luxury model kits. I mean, it had different types of material that were being used in there. Rubber for the wheels, canvas for the roof cover, and just certain things like that. So it was a nice kit. So flushing onwards as we go, 1976, they do a partnership with Revell, and this partnership continues for quite a number of years, which I didn't know, so that's quite interesting. Now, what that partnership exactly meant, I don't know, but I think they were using each other's kits, and certainly it was probably some sort of deal, I think, where you're sort of a bit of price monitoring, sort of keeping everything at the same level so they all get a good cut of the pie. And I think that's more or less why ESCI do a lot of these sort of deals, which I didn't know. Revell is just one of them. You know, you have lots of companies that they do deals with. But so yeah, 1974, they decide to do a 1/9 motorbike, which is the German sidecar, etc. Now this they needed a tool shop, they needed the tools, so they went to a tallery, and a tallery supplied them with the equipment they would need to make these things. So that was a step up there. Also, round about a couple of years later, I think they did a deal with Revell as well, so there was a lot going on. It's quite sort of muddled and murky. So 1974, they started to experiment with 172 multi-pose, and a lot of these figures do have similarities to AIRFIX, which was mentioned in the previous book that I did a review with. And reasons what ESCI say was the reason for that is basically a lot of the sculptors that they used and a lot of the tooling areas that they used were people who had worked in and around different areas and possibly used AIRFIX as a bit of a benchmark. So that's why you do get those 172 multi-pose that ESCI did looking very similar to AIRFIX soldiers. They think it was just the amount of sculptors that they were using. Sort of, I don't think they directly employed sculptors. I think they were more on a freelance base from what I'm picking up. I could be wrong on that, but that's what the book sort of pushes me in the direction of, and I think that's where they went with that. So I mean, even on the final product, when they're looking at them, they must have been aware they look like AIRFIX figures, so you know, they can't really pass the blame onto the sculptors really. So by 1975 they start experimenting with 135 plastic static figures, and again a lot of these look like AIRFIX knockoffs. So you know, I can't say I blame them. AIRFIX was massively popular at this time, so you know, it's just the way it goes. In 1976 they then partner with Heller. And so there's Dino Coppola. That gives you a bit of a brief sort of history of him. Here we have the decal sheets. So you can see that they're all very nice. 1972, so here we are, we're playing catch up here. So there's the motorbike and sidecar, and this is what really catapulted them into the limelight. And there you go, you see these rubber tyres and things like that, so this was really neat. Not many kits doing that. So the logo, and there's the pennant. That's just giving you a bit of a description as to why they did use that. And that was the first ESCI logo. It changed over the years. I think you'll all probably appreciate the other logo that they have, which is the blue dot, and that comes in a bit later. And that's it. 1976 will be the blue dot, but for now this is what they're running with. So late 60s to 70s, this is what you'd expect to see on a kit they would have. And obviously because this motorbike was very successful, they kept running with motorbikes. And here you have a Harley here, and that was the way they were running. And it just gives you a footnote there, so it does describe who actually did the drawings here. So this was a Japanese artist here, very good. And they did say that the Japanese artists at the time were the best in the world, and they did use one, I think for a good couple of years they used one. I can't remember his name, but he is in here somewhere, and he did a lot of the artwork. So we're just sort of running along. So this is a Keterman, yeah, Keterad. These are quite, yeah, I think Action Man actually did a Keterad as well. Bizarre, I'm absolutely sure Action Man did. So Action Man is G.I. Joe if you're American. And that was another hugely popular vehicle. These you'll see in auctions quite a lot. People are quite fond of these, although most people tear these things apart because they just think, well, what use was it really? It couldn't provide any protection for you. You know, what is it? Is it a motorbike or a track vehicle? It doesn't do any real good. So, you know, but this pack gun, for instance, the book tells you that was never made. So they did produce this, but they didn't produce that. There's Tony Chito. Now he was the resident artiste, and he designed a lot of the box covers for a long time. I don't quite know when he came in and when he went out and when the Japanese guy came in, or whether he still stayed there or not. I'm not too sure on that. Yeah, so ESCI was always firm on there mustn't be explosions and dead people in their artwork. And I think Tony Cheeto, when they came to do the battle sets, that all changed. So regarding the battle sets, they were allowed to put explosions and burnt out wreckage and things like that in. So that's a little bit of a one for you there. And yeah, so I'm just doing the catch up now. So 1974, we now get the 172 scale figures, which are the multi-pose. And this was very unusual because a lot of people see AIRFIX in particular would do the solid figure. I mean, I'm not a fan of the multi-pose 172, but I guess if you're doing a diorama, these things are a lot better. So in terms of dioramas, or if you're wargaming, they're probably better because they don't come with a base, I don't think. Not too sure, I can't remember now. And again, there's the reference to them looking like AIRFIX knockoffs. And even the 135 figures, it says here, they look like Tamiya. So there's a lot going on, but ESCI was a very mercenary kind of company, you know. I mean, it was doing partnerships with everyone. I mean, you know, the company does fold in the end. Obviously, we all know the story, but you know, you can't really shed a tear because, you know, it was out there to make money, you know, as everyone wants to. So there's a comparison here. This comparison shows the similarities between certain ESCI figurines and those produced by other makers. On the left, a Tamiya soldier with the 135th Panzer III, and on the right, a monogram Panzerman with the 132nd Panzer. Well, that's up to you what you think. So where are we? We're up to 1974. Here we show all these 172 sets, the multi-pose, which is very nice. And I remember some of these quite clearly. I mean, they were great things. I didn't own any of these, but they were lovely. And these will be the one. Yeah, these are 172 here. But yeah, look, I mean, you can see there's the AIRFIX runner. There's the AIRFIX bazooka man. There's the AIRFIX guy sniping along. Yeah. So I think 1975, yeah, we're still with these. So they're at toy fairs now, Paris Toy Fair, showing their goods and looking very nice. Sidecar again, I think the sidecar was dragged out in so many different versions, it's unreal. But it was their popular product, and seemingly, according to the author, ESCI were the forerunner in using the kit, like repeat kits. You know, you get a Mark 1 aircraft, Mark 2, Mark 3, just using the same kit, just changing the box art, and ESCI were a bit of a forerunner in that. So by 1976, they're now doing distribution deals with Hella and Aurora, and Aurora being a United States company, and Hella I think were French. So already they're doing distribution deals with these guys, and I think again this is to make sure that they all get a decent slice of the pie. And there's your 1/9 scale British paratrooper, and they were trying to work on this 1/9 range to make that work with the 1/9 vehicle, but I don't think the figures were a massive success, and I think they do pull them. I think it gets reincarnated again, but they do pull them. So he looks good though. Haven't actually seen him made up, but he looks good. And now, obviously in 1976, we've now got the correct logo. I don't know whether you can see that. So that's the logo that I remember as a kid. Here we have the distribution, which is, you can probably just see that it's Polstil. And this is another French company, so that's, and it's over here as well, so that's Polistil. It was another French distribution company there. So ESCI again doing another deal with them. Some nice illustrations here, so very, very good. 1977, not a lot that I can actually say. You want to, I don't want to put too many spoilers, or you would need to buy the book. 1977, well, I haven't got a lot written up for this period. Here again is the offices. I think I showed you that already at the start of the book. If I didn't, then there it is. And this is at Milan. And seemingly they occupied a massive corner of this inside, and that was all ESCI offices. And that would be where they had all their books and documentation for the models. There's the 1/9 scale Panzer Grenadier. The Marine, I don't think was ever produced, so it's just telling you here, you know, we did produce this one, we didn't produce that one. I think that was probably more to do with the them not selling very well. So artwork on their magazines. I remember owning only ever one ESCI magazine. It was very nice, and we'll see that later in here, but I've got good fond memories of that one. It was a very nice magazine. And there's the Green Devils, and I remember seeing these on shelves and toy shops and things. So, you know, very, very nice. 1/35th scale. And here you are with your battle sets here. So, and it says, I think the first diorama came in about 1978. So I would presume these are the multi-pose figures that they're using in these dioramas. And then I think as it comes on later, they start fitting in the soft plastic ones. So that's interesting how that comes along. I'd like to see one of these dioramas with the multi-pose ones. I haven't seen any online, but that'd be quite interesting. I've only seen dioramas with the soft plastic figures. I could be wrong in that, but I'm pretty sure the soft plastic comes a little bit later, but maybe not. But yeah, so these were the first, and I think the dioramas that they first issued were Moscow, Salerno, Tobruk, Monte Cassino and D-Day. So I'm not quite sure if they were soft plastic figures or not, but that's easily checked. There's a good glossary in the back if you need to check any model numbers. It's very well done. The only issue I do have is the script here never catches up with the pictures. So, you know, which is why I've sort of sifted through the book already and picked out the bits that I actually want to read off. And look, we got even more here. I don't know which one I would have. I quite like this one, Tunisia. Kasserine Pass I'm not too keen on, I guess, nor that one. I'd imagine there's not many vehicles with the Okinawa one. Americans would have, but the Japanese won't have many. And in 1978 they released their first 172 aircraft, yeah. I'm probably sounding like a real expert here. So in 1978, which I think we're hitting on now, they split with Italeri. So Italeri are now no longer doing the tooling and everything, they're not using them. So they're in a little bit of trouble. The owner, who's Capola, he's deciding, look, ditch the aircraft, propellers and stuff like that. Let's go with jet fighters and jet bombers. We're going to make more money out of that. He was probably about right, because as a kid I only ever remember seeing AIRFIX kits that majority of them were propellers. I mean, I'm not saying they didn't. I mean, they did A10s and General Dynamics stuff and things like that, but they were probably right to sort of ditch making propellers, and you've seen one Spitfire, you've seen them all kind of thing, and let's go with the jets. So he was probably kind of right. So that's the way he's wanting to go, the owner. He's deciding, look, let's get rid of the propeller jobs, let's focus more on jets. And this is round about the time that they become quite adapted, using the same kit and just rehashing the box and the decals, and that's what they would do. So they're a bit of a forerunner in that. Not that that's anything to be proud of, I suppose. And I think this is them now robbing kits from other manufacturers and flogging them off. So, you know, I think these are kind of poor kits. So about 1979, I think we get the Iwo Jima kit. Now the picture won't be on this page at all, and that was quite a good kit for them. Kind of put them on the map in America for certain. Not that they weren't already there, they were, but just under another guise, I'd imagine. And this is it, they're getting into racing cars and things like that now. And here, these are all the jets starting to come in now. So Fighting Falcon, they were one of the first to produce a model of the Tornado, incidentally. Although it was a bit mocked because the detail wasn't great, which of course it wasn't, but it wasn't even out flying at the time. But the kit was actually praised as being a good kit. Yeah, so not too bad. This is some artwork they used to do in their catalogues. It was a penguin. Now, I didn't buy a lot of their catalogues, and this predated when I even bought my first catalogue with them, so I don't really know much about these penguins. But they were never produced in a kit, they were just drawings and doodles for the catalogue. So here we go. So they did dabble in MiGs for, you know, Russian Air Force things, but they weren't well received. Yeah, nice long-range Desert Group Jeep there, so very nice. Oh, was never produced. Well, that's a shame, isn't it? Because it's funny, Tamiya seemed to have the long-range Desert Group Jeep sewn up, really. I think Matchbox did one, 172 though. So we're hitting 1980 now, guys, so we're in 1980. Diorama's release, I think, was the Battle for Berlin, Okiwana. I think at this time the Japanese artist was here, but he didn't last I think he lasted around about a couple of years, and then he was gone. And this looks like Revell's magazine. They're using the ESCI kit in this one, so this is what they were all up to. So yeah, it's quite surprising, isn't it? And there's the Iwo Jima kit. So yeah, 1980 they put it in the fair. I'm fairly sure it was 1979, but there you go. So there's the magazine that I remember as a kid, and I had this one, and it was a very good magazine. And there's one of these cockpits that they used to actually do. So that was quite risky sort of move, but I think they were fairly, not a bad seller, but they weren't great. And there it is, just mentioning the dioramas again here. And they also released another motorbike, a Zundap. 1981, their agreement with Revell ends. So they're free of Revell, and whether or not that helps them, I don't think so. So although it's shown we're now into our golden age here, I don't think these kick in till a little bit later, but because the book is off kilter, this is what you end up with. So I really do think these kick in a little bit later. 1981's too early for these kits. And it's just saying ESCI released train kits in 1981, cars, etc. Yeah, but there's a list of, you know, their soft plastic range, which was excellent. Apart from the posing, as we've always said with ESCI, it does look a little bit limp. But I mean, in terms of quality, you know, they hit the nail on the head, because the AIRFIX'S stuff was just a mishmash of different sculptors and very hit and miss, which was a shame. And yeah, it's just mentioning there the Russian artillery of the Crimean War, and opposing that was Lord Cardigan's Hussars, which they did, and I think that went on to become a diorama. And this is a brief description of the artist that went to help them out, and he was Yoshiyuki Takani. So if I've murdered that, I do apologise. So yes, so continuing on, and these were the rest of the releases coming in now. And like I say, the book is off kilter, so I do apologise for that with the pictures. So I have to apologise on that front, but here we've got the Confederates, we've got Lord Cardigan's Hussars, you know, we've got some very, very good releases, and I'll go through the periods of that. By 1986 they really do expand. 1985 is the Roman Legion, which won an award, but we're jumping ahead here. I just have to apologise because the pictures do go out of sync with how he's trying to describe what's going on in the particular years, so it's a little bit unfortunate, and that's my main bugbear with the book. Here we have the quite famous British Camp Rest area, and it says here originally this was going to be a Beaufort's crew, but they changed it to Rest area. Now that was quite a popular kit, and I remember seeing that in the shops a lot. The packaging was a bit different to that, the one I've seen, and it did go on to win an award, I believe, so I do remember that kit. 1982, so we're on to the releases of the British Soldier, the Big Red One, things like that. They're all getting released in this period. And that was the terrain set that I mentioned just earlier than that. And he's mentioned here the end of the agreement with Revell in 1981. So 1983, I don't think there was a massive amount went on, it wasn't really, because I've drawn a blank there and you can see there's not much text here, so I'll skirt through that bit. 1984, we get the 172 sets, which are the Napoleonic and the Zulu set, so that's when those plastic ones come in. So 1984, this goes back, and you can see now what I mean about the book and the pictures, but there's your Zulus and your Napoleonics coming through. So yeah. Skirt through that, more cars coming out and things like that, so here we go. So this is now, I think we're now entering a funny period now, and like I say, 1985 their Roman Legion kit was released, that did win an award, and now ESCI are using old Revell kits and old Fuji kits, so you know we are in the death throes now, that's without doubt. 1986, which I've just skimmed past it there. Armoured vehicles still going. They were very famous for these armoured vehicles. That's still going quite well. Their plastic models figures, they're still going fairly well. And so no real issues there. 172 figures expand. Hard plastic is finished with, by the way, so they're still pumping them out, but they're not adding to the range. So in 1987 they're bought out by the Ertel Corporation, a US company, and this stage a lot of Italians start leaving, and they're pretty fed up really. And it's notable, 1987, I think the British set, the Khyber Pass, the 172 soldiers, released in this dark period, and that's acclaimed as a good kit, very good kit. Diorama sets are released Napoleonic wise, and the French cuirassiers in that period win another award, so there's an award, model award won for the French cuirassiers there. 1988 we're going to jump up to now. You can see how much this is shortening in date wise now because the thing's just on its knees already. So 1988 we've got here, and I don't have much on this. We've got 135 scale Waterloo figures released, which is a bit of a surprise. I didn't know about that. (1989) we have the NATO Grand Crew, and I think that's 172. Looks like a little bit of a sketch here. The Spetsnaz were released. Yeah, possibly the dates and the pictures are out there again, but I think we're catching up now. And basically this is turning to the worst now. Capello is left, so Dino Capello has left, and the company now is going to focus more on cars and trucks and things like that. So all the American stuff, because Ertl is now calling the shots, I think it's pretty much over. So now they're going into more US vehicle type things, as the author explains, and cars and trucks, which Americans love. And the author's just saying, look, he didn't understand, the company didn't understand the European market. We like our balanced European tanks and things like that, and American ones as well. But the Americans just went straight in with American vehicles and Russian vehicles. And so, yeah, so these are the dark years. 1990. Let's see what I picked out for 1990. Again, I've got the death throws. These are just reissues now. Staff are laid off 1991, so the company's coming to an end. Kits are so bad, and a couple of the kits, there's the Tupelo-22 blinder aircraft, which is terrible, panned by the critics, and the Fokker F-27, another bad kit that they released. So it's all going wrong. 1993 production moves to the UK. I have no idea why, but I believe Ertl had a British holding company, so I think the British were behind the scenes, but the Americans were pretty much running the show. And by 1992, even the catalogue was printed in the United States, so it's game over pretty much. 1993, yeah, so 1992. Yeah, and it pretty much says here from 1993 to the end. So now the name actually gets buried in 1999, so there's no more ESCI after 1999 unless you find it on eBay, but that was it. And in 2005 all the tooling is pretty much bought by Italeri, so that's why you see a lot of ESCI soldiers and things like that and kits by Italeri. They'll be old ESCI ones, which is a good thing because it survives. And here this is a breakdown of the comments and remarks. That's him contacting various people who worked for ESCI, information like that, where he's taken a lot of his stuff from. He's just put it here, and this is my biggest complaint about it. The numbering in these sections was very small, and I think if you just shaded the area with the number, that would have been a lot better. It would stand. Sometimes you read it and you're just reading into what someone's explaining, which is a little bit tricky. I mean, it is in essence a light read, but in the 70s it's very busy, so you know, once you're through the 70s it is a lot lighter, but there's a lot of flicking backwards and forwards. It's quite an annoying book, but I think the author just he's got to cram everything into this selection of books. They've obviously agreed the format and everything. The author's got to cram everything in. A model book is no good without pictures, that's for sure. And he's done the best he can. And here's the appendix, and this is what most people will be after. So this lists all the dates, the model kit numbers, everything. So everything you want to know is in this book. So you can look on the internet, it's all there on the internet. I've checked anyway, but if you want to, it is here too. So there you go, your aircraft, your display cases, even everything. So he's done a lot of work, you know. But I mean, I would like to think that the ESCI guys helped him out with this information that make his life so much easier. And there's your ESCI decals, so that's it. And there's some old adverts. Amazing. So this was in the series number 10. Yeah, so the AIRFIX one was number 6. So It's the Matchbox one I'm after next. There is a Hella one. There's a Revell one, which I wouldn't mind. The Hella one I'm not too keen on. I really think all their soldiers are just AIRFIX'S soldiers and things like that, so I'm not too keen on the Hella one. So I think there's a Revell one, and I think there's a Matchbox one, so I'll try and get those. So, you know, so see what you think. Anyway, I hope I haven't given too much away, otherwise the author might try and sue me. So thanks again for watching, and we will see you soon. Bye bye.